Hi, it's Saturday, March 21st today, and I just wanted to check in as life gets crazier and crazier. There are more than 500 confirmed um, COVID-19 cases in the state of Massachusetts, which is where I am, and I'm not sure exactly how many. I think it's just been one death, I believe, one elderly gentleman from Winthrop, I'm pretty sure, which is not that far away. Um, I have read through my city's um, Department of Public Health that there is one confirmed case here in my city. I'm in a small city outside of Boston. Really suburban, but semi-urban. Um, that one case was linked with the Biogen conference, which was part of the seeding of really the whole country. And there was just this huge conference of this particular company that were at a hotel here in the Boston area. And everybody then went home to their own states, and people from uh, all over the country, and then even in a couple of foreign countries, then tested positive. Evidently, there was some sort of a super spreader at the Biogen conference. Um, so that's what's up with my state. Things get even crazier in Italy. Oh my goodness. Each day there are literally thousands of new coronavirus cases in Italy. And just in the last couple of days, yesterday I think there were over 600 new cases. I'm sorry, new deaths. And then today I believe it was close to 800, like 790 something deaths in one day alone in Italy. Now, Italy has surpassed the number of deaths that there have been in total in China, and they've done this very quickly. So now there are over 4,000 deaths in Italy, and it's 3,000 and a bit in China. You keep hearing just some really awful things over. I just get concerned about places in Southeast Asia, places like Malaysia and Indonesia and Cambodia, Bangladesh. Uh, I mean, what a scare if this really, okay, it's not if, it's when this latches hold in India. Places where you can barely elbow room your way down the street. How are they possibly going to keep that physical social distancing? Um, it's just great concern for the whole continent of Africa. Of course, there are a lot of countries with, maybe one or two or just a few cases. They just don't have the capacity to do the testing. So I feel like, and I've read from really some very reliable sources, that basically add a zero to the end of every um, number of cases. So if there's a country with 5 cases, just add a zero, there are probably 50 cases. And you hear the case, 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 cluster, cluster, boom. A lot of places are still in case, case, case. A lot of places are in cluster or cluster, cluster. I mean, I look at New York City. Oh my goodness, my bird is having a meltdown over there on the other side of the room. I don't know if you can hear him. Lucky. I don't know what's up with him. Um, yeah, just New York City. New York State, New York City in general, uh, crazy, crazy. I'm seeing videos out of Italy from some of the hospitals, particularly in the northern Italy, the Lombardy region. The different doctors are saying, shut everything down in your country right now to prevent this. or to lessen this, to flatten the curve, to push the curve to the right, however you call it. And honestly, I think it's too late for places like New York City. I mean, it's probably too late for most places in the United States. Our testing just didn't get off the ground. I don't quite understand why, um, our administration didn't accept the testing kits from the World Health Organization when they were offered just ages ago, back in, was it early mid February? They didn't accept them. They said, "Oh no, we're going to create our own." Hello, somebody just offered these to you and they're already created. Would you just take them? We've just had such a delay. So it probably is too late in a lot of places, particularly New York City. I mean, and they're talking about, I think when I was reading yesterday, and I don't remember how many cases there were in New York City at the time, but it was like almost a quarter of all of the confirmed cases in New York City were in the hospital. I mean, like they were serious enough that they couldn't just self isolate and be treated at home. They had to be hospitalized. And of course, that has just gone boom overnight, the number of cases. And part of it has to do with the fact that there is increased testing. And then I saw on whatever sort of a news conference it was today, I didn't watch the whole thing, but just the little snippet. Um, some of the task force, the Vice President Mike Pence's task force on coronavirus, um, talking about how, well, we're not even going to do the testing for the people who aren't hospitalized. I mean, they were talking about specifically in New York City. I mean, all along they've been saying, "Oh, we've got to test, we've got to test, we've got to test," and now they're like, don't even, don't even. Like, how are people going to know if they need to self isolate or if it's just, a little cold or some flu or something? How do you know this and know to self isolate? Or the people are just going to be going out to the grocery store. I mean, granted, a lot of places are closed right now, uh, theaters and uh, all sorts of places, bars and pubs and social gathering places. A lot of religious institutions are closed so that there aren't services and so forth. I mean, but the grocery stores and the pharmacies and food pantries, a lot of places are remaining open for uh, the necessities that people in society need. How are people going to know that they need to stay home and self isolate if they haven't been tested? They're like, yeah, I've got a little cold, but you know what? I've really got to get to the pharmacy and, pick up my asthma medication. Like, oh, for God's sakes, test everybody, please. Don't, the fact that the government task force on coronavirus is saying, yeah, we're not really going to test. That's just so counterintuitive. So frustrating. So I guess the final thought that I have for today is yesterday evening I heard from my neighbor on the first floor of my um, my triple decker that I'm in. I'm up here on the third floor, up in the bird's nest. My neighbor on the first floor is in quarantine. You just don't know until you're tested. Um, his whole building that he works in had to be shut down. The boss's wife is being tested because she had known exposure to a positive uh, person, a person that tested positive. So, of course, she has to be tested. And, of course, so her husband has to also be in quarantine. I guess he's not being tested. For now, they're just going to test the wife, which I suppose makes sense. And they have to wait and see if obviously if she tests positive, then they have to test the husband. But meanwhile, the whole building that this guy is the boss of, in the company, the whole building is shut down and everybody has to work from home, and they are all on quarantine waiting to find out if this guy's wife tested positive. And my first floor neighbor is on self quarantine waiting to find out if his boss's wife is testing positive, in which case then the boss has to be tested, and then potentially my downstairs neighbor has to be tested. And the hope is, I mean, he's a healthy young guy. He's always out riding his bicycle and playing basketball, really not really significantly concerned about him contracting the virus, whether or not he'll be okay. Although they do talk about how more and more younger people are presenting with really serious symptoms and having to be hospitalized, and young people are dying more and more with the virus. It's not something that's just affecting the elderly or those with comorbidities, um, the underlying health issues. So hopefully, my neighbor hears that, oh, we're all clear, we don't need to self isolate. We'll see. Meanwhile, he is under strict orders from me that until he hears from his boss whether or not the wife has tested positive, do not use the uh, the communal area of the house, which is the laundry area. Don't go down there. Don't touch the light switch. Don't touch the door handle. None of that. Just none of that. So, I mean, I hadn't even really thought about thought about the issue, that it could be in the communal areas of the building that I'm living in. Luckily, he has a separate entrance than I have. Well, I mean, but we do have the same entrance to the communal laundry area. So suddenly I am a little more concerned about thinking, oh, well, I need to have the Clorox wipe and do door handles and do light switches. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. And that's where my neighbor's at. And that's where the state of Massachusetts is at. And that's basically where the world is these days. And I'll give another update sometime very soon. Okay. Stay well.